The conference room fell silent as Dante Salvatore's voice cut through the tension like a blade. My son will choose his own mother from the 3 women seated before us today. But nobody, not the wealthy heiresses, not the powerful advisors, not even Dante himself, was prepared for what 7-year-old Marco would say next. I choose her, the boy declared, pointing directly at me. Elena Rodriguez. The housemaid. The woman scrubbing their floors. The nobody from Mexico who was supposed to remain invisible. In that moment, as every eye in that mansion turned toward me with shock, confusion, and rage, I felt my carefully constructed world begin to crumble. Because they didn't know my secret. They didn't know about the 4-year-old daughter I was hiding in a tiny apartment across town. They didn't know that accepting this impossible choice would destroy everything I'd worked so hard to protect. But what I didn't know, what none of us could have predicted, was that this moment would become the beginning of something that would change all our lives forever. If you want to discover how a simple housemaid became the most powerful woman in Chicago's underworld, and what happened when my secret was finally revealed, stay with me until the end. Because this story isn't just about love or power. It's about a woman who learned that sometimes the most dangerous choice is also the only one worth making. 6 months earlier, I had walked through the iron gates of the Salvatore estate with nothing but desperation and determination burning in my chest. At 26 years old, I'd already lived 3 lifetimes worth of struggle. The worn sneakers on my feet had walked countless miles searching for work. My hands, rough from years of cleaning other people's homes, trembled as I signed the employment contract that would pay me more in 1 month than I'd earned in 6 months at my previous 3 jobs combined. But money wasn't why my hands shook. It was fear. Pure, visceral fear of the man whose mansion I would now call my workplace. Dante Salvatore. The name whispered in Chicago's shadows with equal parts reverence and terror. The Mafia boss whose steel-gray eyes missed nothing, whose word was law, whose enemies simply disappeared. I knew what I was walking into. I knew the risks. But when you're a single mother with a 4-year-old daughter depending on you, when you've been evicted twice in 1 year, when you've chosen between feeding your child and feeding yourself more times than you can count, you take the dangerous job. You take it and you pray you can stay invisible long enough to save what you need to save. That first day, the head housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, led me through hallways that seemed to stretch forever. Marble floors so polished I could see my reflection. Crystal chandeliers that cost more than I'd earn in my lifetime. Artwork that belonged in museums. Everything about the Salvatore mansion screamed wealth, power, and danger. Keep your head down, do your work, and don't ask questions, Mrs. Chen had warned me in a low voice. Mr. Salvatore values discretion above all else. The less you see, the less you know, the longer you'll survive here. I nodded, understanding the unspoken message. This wasn't just a house. It was a fortress. And the people who worked here didn't just serve a family, they served an empire built on secrets and shadows. But then I met Marco. The 7-year-old boy found me on my second day, while I was polishing the massive wooden staircase that dominated the mansion's entrance. I heard small footsteps approaching and looked up to see a child with dark hair and eyes that held far too much sadness for someone so young. "Hello," he said quietly in English, then switched to Spanish. "Hablas español?" My heart squeezed. "Sí, hablo español," I replied softly. "What's your name?" "Marco Antonio Salvatore." He said it formally, like he'd been taught to introduce himself at business meetings. "Are you the new housemaid?" "Yes. My name is Elena." "It's nice to meet you, Marco." Something in my tone, maybe the genuine warmth, maybe the lack of the fear that most people showed around anyone bearing the Salvatore name, made the boy's expression brighten slightly. "Elena," he repeated, testing the name. "That's pretty." Over the following weeks, I learned Marco's story in pieces. His mother had died 3 years ago in a car accident that the household staff whispered might not have been an accident at all. Since then, Marco had been raised by nannies who came and went, none staying long enough to form real attachments. Dante, consumed by running his empire, loved his son fiercely but didn't know how to bridge the emotional distance between them. Marco was lonely. Desperately, achingly lonely. And despite every logical reason to maintain professional boundaries, despite knowing that attachment was dangerous in this world, I couldn't stop myself from caring about this little boy who reminded me so much of my own daughter. Sophia. My beautiful, precious Sophia, waiting for me each night in our cramped apartment. At 4 years old, she had my dark curls and bright smile, and a spirit that refused to be dimmed by our circumstances. Every morning, I kissed her goodbye before dawn, leaving her with my neighbor Mrs. Garcia. Every night, I returned exhausted, and she would throw her arms around me like I'd been gone for years instead of hours. "Mommy, did you see the prince today?" she would ask, because in her mind, any mansion must have a prince living there. "Yes, baby," I would tell her. "I saw the prince. But the real prince is a little boy who's very lonely." "Why is he lonely?" "Because he doesn't have a mama to love him." Sophia would consider this seriously. "That's sad, Mommy. Everyone needs a mama." She was right, of course. Everyone needed a mama. And as the weeks turned into months, I found myself becoming that for Marco in small ways. Teaching him Spanish words while I cleaned. Listening to his stories about school. Sitting with him when nightmares woke him and his father was away on business. Making his favorite foods even though it wasn't technically my job. I told myself I was just being kind. Just showing basic human compassion to a motherless child. But the truth was more complicated. Marco filled something in me, too. The part of me that had always wanted more children. The part that ached when I thought about Sophia growing up alone, without siblings to play with or protect her. But caring about Marco meant walking a dangerous line. Because the more I loved this child, the more visible I became. And visibility in the Salvatore mansion was the last thing someone like me, someone with secrets, someone who didn't belong, could afford. Then came the night that changed everything. I was leaving late after Marco had finally fallen asleep. He'd been upset because Dante had missed his school play for the 3rd time that month. As I walked past Dante's office, I heard voices, low, tense, speaking in rapid Italian. I shouldn't have stopped. I should have kept walking. But Marco's name caught my attention. "The boy needs a mother," one voice insisted. "It's been 3 years, Dante. You need to remarry." "I'm aware of my obligations," Dante's voice replied, cold and controlled. "Then let us arrange meetings with suitable candidates. Daughters from allied families. Women who understand our world." There was a long pause. Then Dante said, "Fine. Arrange it. Marco will meet them and choose." My stomach dropped. They were going to parade women in front of Marco like he was shopping for a new toy. They were going to force this grieving, lonely child to pick a stranger to be his mother based on what? Her family connections. Her ability to smile politely. I pressed my hand against my mouth to keep from making a sound. This wasn't my business. This was exactly the kind of thing Mrs. Chen had warned me not to overhear. But all I could think about was Marco's face. His sadness. His desperate need for genuine love. Before I could retreat, the office door opened. Dante stood there, his steel-gray eyes locking onto mine. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he said quietly, "Ms. Rodriguez. Come in." My heart hammered as I entered the office. This was it. I'd be fired. Maybe worse. You didn't eavesdrop on Mafia bosses and walk away unscathed. But Dante simply gestured to a chair. "Sit." I sat, my hands folded in my lap to hide their trembling. "How much did you hear?" he asked. "Enough to know that Marco will be meeting potential mothers." I chose my words carefully. Dante studied me for a long moment. "And what do you think of that plan?" The question surprised me. Why would he care what I thought? But looking at his face, I saw something I hadn't expected. Uncertainty. This powerful man, who commanded an empire with absolute authority, was genuinely unsure about how to help his son. I think, I said slowly, that Marco is a child who's already lost one mother. Forcing him to choose another based on business arrangements might cause more harm than good. Then what would you suggest? There was no sarcasm in his voice. He genuinely wanted to know. I would suggest letting Marco be a child for a while longer. Let him heal. Let him learn that love doesn't have to be forced or chosen like a business deal. When he's ready, when you're both ready, the right person will come into your lives naturally. Dante's expression was unreadable. You care about my son. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Very much. He's a special boy who deserves to be loved for who he is, not what he represents. Something flickered in Dante's eyes. Thank you for your honesty, Ms. Rodriguez. You may go. I stood, relieved to have escaped without losing my job. But as I reached the door, Dante spoke again. Elena. It was the first time he'd used my first name. My advisors have already arranged the meetings. 3 women will visit this weekend. Marco will meet them and choose. I would like you to be present during the meetings. Observe. Tell me what you see. I turned back, confused. Sir, I don't think that's appropriate. I'm just, the housemaid. Yes. His gray eyes held mine. But you're also the only person in this house who puts Marco's emotional well-being above everything else. I need someone I can trust to tell me the truth about these women. Can I trust you to do that? The weight of his request settled over me. He was asking me to be more than staff. He was asking me to protect his son. How could I say no? Yes, I whispered. You can trust me. As I left the office, I didn't know that I just sealed my fate. I didn't know that in 3 days, everything would explode in ways none of us could predict. I just knew that Marco needed me, and I would do whatever it took to protect him. Even if it meant risking everything. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of beautiful autumn weather that belonged in magazines. The Salvatore mansion had been transformed for the arrival of the 3 candidates. Flowers everywhere. The finest china. Music playing softly through hidden speakers. It looked like a fairy tale. But fairy tales, I'd learned, were often just nightmares in disguise. The first woman to arrive was Isabella Torino from New York. She swept into the mansion like she owned it, her designer dress probably costing more than I earned in a year. When introduced to Marco, she smiled, but it was the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. What a handsome boy, she cooed, not bothering to kneel to his level. We'll get along wonderfully, I'm sure. I watched from my position near the door as Marco offered a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes either. He was performing. Playing the role of the dutiful son. But I could see the tension in his small shoulders, the way he stayed close to his father's side. Isabella lasted exactly 20 minutes before she started talking about modernizing the household, which seemed to be code for replacing most of the staff. Including, I suspected, housemaids who got too close to the family. The second candidate, Sophia Benedetti from Boston, was warmer but treated Marco like an accessory. She asked him questions but didn't really listen to his answers. Her eyes kept drifting to Dante, calculating, assessing what being Mrs. Salvatore would mean for her status. I felt sick watching it. These women didn't want to be Marco's mother. They wanted the power, the prestige, the position. Marco was just an obstacle to overcome. But the third candidate gave me pause. Maria Castellano from Las Vegas was younger than the others and seemed genuinely interested in Marco. She sat on the floor to play with his toy cars. She laughed at his jokes. She asked real questions and listened to his answers. For a moment, I thought maybe this could work. Then Maria said the words that shattered any hope. You know, Marco, when I become your new mama, we'll need to make some changes. Like getting you a proper nanny. Someone more, suitable for a family like ours. Someone with better breeding. Marco's face fell. What's wrong with Elena? Oh, nothing's wrong with her, sweetie. Maria's smile was patronizing. She's just the help. You need someone who can really guide you. Teach you proper manners and connections. The temperature in the room plummeted. I saw Dante's jaw tighten, saw the dangerous glint in his eyes. But before he could speak, Marco stood up. I need to talk to Papa. Alone. The three women were escorted to the garden for refreshments while Marco pulled his father into the office. I tried to return to work, but Dante had asked me to stay close. So I waited in the hallway, my heart pounding, knowing something significant was happening behind that closed door. 20 minutes later, the door opened. Marco emerged first, his chin raised with determination that reminded everyone he was indeed Dante Salvatore's son. Dante followed, his expression unreadable but his hand resting protectively on Marco's shoulder. Ladies, Dante called to the garden. Please join us in the living room. I found myself drawn forward, unable to resist witnessing what was about to happen. The three women arranged themselves on the expensive sofas, each wearing confident smiles. They thought they were about to hear which one had won. Marco has made his choice, Dante announced. Isabella leaned forward eagerly. Sophia straightened her posture. Maria's smile widened. Marco took a deep breath, and I saw him glance toward where I stood in the doorway. Our eyes met for just a second, and in that moment, I knew. Oh God, I knew what he was about to say. I don't want any of them to be my mama, Marco's voice was clear and strong. I already know who I want. And who is that, darling? Maria asked, though her smile was starting to crack. Marco turned and pointed directly at me. I want Elena to be my mama. The world stopped. Everything, sound, motion, breath, simply ceased. I stood frozen in the doorway, feeling every eye in that room turn toward me with shock, confusion, and in some cases, fury. The housemaid? Isabella's voice was sharp with disbelief. You can't be serious. Dante, surely you're not going to allow this ridiculous, Sophia began. Enough. One word from Dante, carrying such absolute authority that even Isabella fell silent. My son has made his choice. But she's nobody. Maria protested, her earlier warmth completely gone. She's a servant. You can't possibly, I said enough. Dante's voice dropped to a tone that made everyone in the room go rigid. This meeting is over. You will be escorted out. Now. As the three women were shepherded out by Dante's security, Isabella protesting loudly, Sophia maintaining icy dignity, Maria looking stunned, I remained frozen. This wasn't real. This couldn't be happening. I was having a nightmare. I would wake up any second in my tiny apartment with Sophia curled beside me. But then Marco ran to me, wrapping his arms around my waist. I chose you, Elena, he said, his voice muffled against my uniform. I chose you to be my mama because you're the only one who really loves me. My eyes filled with tears as I looked over Marco's head to meet Dante's gaze. The intensity in those steel-gray eyes made my breath catch. There was surprise there, yes, but also something else. Something that made my heart race for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. Marco, Dante said quietly. Go to your room. Elena and I need to talk. As Marco reluctantly obeyed, I found myself alone with the most dangerous man in Chicago. My secret about Sophia burned in my chest like acid. How could I tell him now? How could I explain that I'd been lying for 6 months? Well, Dante said, his voice carefully controlled as he moved closer. It seems my son has made an interesting choice. Mr. Salvatore, I never encouraged this, I said quickly. I know. He stepped even closer, and I caught the scent of his cologne. Expensive. Masculine. Intoxicating. But the question is, what are we going to do about it? I don't understand. Don't you? His gray eyes searched my face. My son has chosen you, Elena. In our world, that means something. That means everything. My hands trembled at my sides. I'm just the housemaid. You're the woman my son wants as his mother. That makes you far more than just anything. He paused, his gaze intense. But before we go any further, I need you to tell me something. And I need you to tell me the truth. My heart stopped. He knew. Somehow, he knew about Sophia. Is there anything about your life, your past, your situation that I should know about? Dante asked. Because if we're going to do this, if we're going to move forward, I need complete honesty. This was it. The moment of truth. I could lie, could keep hiding Sophia, could try to protect my secret for a little longer. Or I could trust this man who held my entire world in his powerful hands. Yes, I whispered, my voice breaking. There's something you need to know. Something that changes everything. Tell me. I took a deep breath, feeling tears stream down my face. I have a daughter. Her name is Sophia. She's 4 years old. I've been hiding her because I was terrified you'd fire me if you knew. I'm a single mother, Mr. Salvatore. The father abandoned us when I told him I was pregnant. It's just me and her against the world, and I would do anything, sacrifice anything, to keep her safe. The silence that followed felt eternal. Dante's expression was unreadable, and I braced myself for rage, for dismissal, for the end of everything. But when he finally spoke, his voice was gentle. Show me a picture of her. Stunned, I pulled out my phone with shaking hands. My wallpaper was a photo of Sophia laughing, her dark curls wild around her face, her brown eyes sparkling with pure joy. Dante studied the image for a long moment. When he looked up, there was something soft in his expression that I'd never seen before. She looks like you. Everyone says that. Marco would love her. He said it so simply, like it was obvious. Like having a hidden 4-year-old daughter wasn't a deal-breaker but an addition. Mr. Salvatore, Dante, he corrected. If you're going to be part of my family, use my name. I can't be part of your family, I protested. You don't understand. I'm nobody. I have nothing to offer. I'm just, a mother who would sacrifice everything for her child, Dante interrupted. A woman brave enough to work for a man she's terrified of to provide for her daughter. Someone kind enough to love a lonely little boy who isn't even hers. Someone strong enough to survive on your own in a world designed to break you. His voice dropped. That's not nothing, Elena. That's everything. I stared at him, unable to process what I was hearing. This didn't make sense. Men like Dante Salvatore didn't marry housemaids with secret children. They didn't look at single mothers with warmth in their eyes. They didn't. Come with me tomorrow, Dante said. Bring Sophia. Let's have breakfast together, you, me, Marco, and your daughter. Let's see if this impossible thing could actually work. This is insane, I whispered. Yes, Dante agreed, a slight smile touching his lips. But the best things in life usually are. As I left the mansion that night, my mind reeling, I didn't know that Dante had already made his decision. I didn't know that he'd already instructed his lawyers to begin drafting paperwork that would change all our lives. I just knew that somehow, impossibly, a door had opened. A door that led to something I'd never allowed myself to dream about. A family. A real family. Not just for me, but for Sophia too. But first, we had to walk through that door. And that, I was learning, was the scariest part of all. The next morning, I dressed Sophia in her prettiest dress, a pink thing with white flowers that she'd gotten for her birthday from Mrs. Garcia. As I brushed her curls, trying to tame them into something presentable, my hands shook. "Mommy, why are you nervous?" Sophia asked, watching me in the mirror. "Because we're meeting someone very important today, baby." "The Lonely Prince?" I smiled despite my anxiety. "Yes. The Lonely Prince. And his papa." Sophia considered this seriously. "Will they like me?" My heart broke a little. "They'll love you, mi amor. How could they not?" The SUV Dante sent arrived exactly on time. The driver, a man I recognized from the mansion, opened the door with a respect that made me uncomfortable. I wasn't used to being treated like I mattered. He drove us to a small, private restaurant in a quiet neighborhood. Not flashy, not obviously expensive, but clearly a place where powerful people went when they wanted privacy. Dante was waiting outside, and my breath caught when I saw him. He was dressed casually, jeans and a black sweater, but he still radiated power. And next to him, holding his hand and bouncing with excitement, was Marco. "Elena!" Marco called out, breaking away from his father to run toward us. Sophia pressed closer to my side, suddenly shy. But when Marco skidded to a stop in front of us and smiled, her expression brightened. "Hi," Marco said. "You must be Sophia. Elena told me about you." "Hi," Sophia replied quietly. "Elena told me about you too. She said you're lonely." Marco's smile faltered slightly. "I was. But maybe I don't have to be anymore." "Maybe," Sophia agreed. Then she pulled out a small toy from her pocket, a tiny plastic horse that was one of her treasures. "This is for you. So you won't be lonely while you wait for us to come back." I watched as Marco accepted the gift with the kind of reverence that told me this boy understood what it meant to share something precious. "Thank you," he said solemnly. "I'll take really good care of him." "Her," Sophia corrected. "She's a girl horse. Her name is Princess." "Princess," Marco repeated. "That's a perfect name." As the children chatted, I became aware of Dante standing close to me. Too close. The heat from his body seemed to reach across the space between us. "She's beautiful," he said quietly. "Just like her mother." I felt my cheeks heat. "Thank you. Come. Let's eat. We have much to discuss." Breakfast was surprisingly easy. Marco and Sophia hit it off immediately, chattering in a mix of English and Spanish while Dante and I watched them. In between bites, Dante asked me questions, about Sophia's favorite things, about her health, about her personality. Not interrogating, just genuinely wanting to know. "She's smart," I told him. "Sometimes too smart. She figures things out that I wish she didn't have to understand yet. Like how to stretch meals when money's tight, or why we can't afford nice things." "That ends today," Dante said firmly. "If you agree to this, to us, Sophia will never want for anything again." "I don't want her spoiled," I said quickly. "I don't want her to forget where we came from." "Then we'll make sure she doesn't." Dante's gray eyes held mine. "But I also won't let her suffer because of pride, Elena. Not mine, not yours, not anyone's. She's a child. She deserves to be safe, fed, educated, and happy. Let me provide that." It was the word, "let," that got me. Not, "I will," or, "I'll make sure," but, "let me." Like he was asking permission. Like my opinion mattered. After breakfast, while the children played in the restaurant's small garden area under the watchful eyes of Dante's security, he turned to me. "I have a proposal," he said. "And I want you to hear me out completely before you answer." My heart hammered. "Okay. Marry me." He said it simply, directly. "Not immediately. Take whatever time you need. But eventually, officially, marry me and become Marco's mother. Become my wife. And in return, Sophia becomes my daughter. Legally, officially. The Salvatore name will protect her for the rest of her life. Dante, I'm not finished. His voice was gentle but firm. I won't lie to you and say I'm in love with you. I'm not. Not yet. But I respect you more than any woman I've ever met. I'm attracted to you in ways that terrify me. And I believe that we could build something real together. Something based on choice and honesty rather than obligation. I swallowed hard. What would you expect from me? As your wife? Honesty. Loyalty. Help raising our children, because they would be ours, Elena. Both of them. Marco and Sophia, equally ours. He paused. And I'd hope that someday, you might come to care for me the way I'm beginning to care for you. You don't know me, I whispered. Not really. Then let's change that. Dante reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. The contact sent electricity through my body. Let's take time. Let's build something real. And when you're ready, if you're ever ready, we'll make it official. I looked through the window at Sophia and Marco. They were holding hands now, examining something on the ground. Already looking like siblings. Already building the connection they both desperately needed. I need conditions, I said finally. Name them. Sophia keeps her last name until she's old enough to choose for herself. I want her to remember her roots. Agreed. I want to work. Maybe not as a housemaid, but something. I need to feel useful. Agreed. I could actually use someone to manage the household staff. If you're interested. I blinked, surprised. That was a position of real authority. Yes. I'd like that. What else? Time, I said firmly. Real time to know you. To trust this. I won't marry you until I'm certain it's right for both our children. Dante nodded slowly. How much time? At least 6 months. Maybe more. Then 6 months it is. He stood, moving around the table to stand before me. But Elena, I need you to understand something. The moment you agree to this, the moment you say yes, you and Sophia come under my protection. That means moving into the mansion. That means accepting security. That means entering my world completely. Why? I asked. Why rush that part? Dante's expression darkened. Because the moment my enemies find out I'm considering remarrying, they'll look for weaknesses. They'll look for leverage. And a woman living alone with a small child in an unprotected apartment is exactly the kind of leverage they'd use. I won't risk Sophia's safety. I won't risk yours. The reality of his world crashed over me. This wasn't just about love or family. It was about power and danger and threats I couldn't even imagine. But if we live in the mansion, I said slowly, everyone will know. Everyone will talk. What will people think? They'll think I'm a man who's found something worth protecting. Dante's hand cupped my cheek, his touch surprisingly gentle. Let them talk, Elena. Let them gossip. The only opinions that matter are ours and our children's. I closed my eyes, leaning into his touch despite every logical reason not to. This is crazy. Yes, he agreed. But you're considering it anyway. He was right. Despite the insanity, despite the danger, despite everything, I was considering it. Because when I looked at our children playing together, I saw what could be. A family. A real family built on honesty and choice. Yes, I whispered, opening my eyes to meet his intense gaze. Yes, I'll try. I'll move into the mansion. I'll give this 6 months. And if it works, if we can really build something real, then yes, I'll marry you. Dante's smile was like sunrise. Yes. Yes, I confirmed, and then his lips were on mine. The kiss was gentle at first, questioning. But when I responded, when my hands gripped his sweater and pulled him closer, it deepened into something that made my head spin and my heart race. This was real. This was happening. This was, Mommy. Sophia's delighted voice broke through the haze. Are you kissing the prince? We broke apart, both slightly breathless. Through the window, I could see Sophia and Marco watching us with matching grins. Yes, baby, I called back. I'm kissing the prince. Does that mean we get to live in the castle? Sophia asked, her eyes wide with hope. Dante laughed, a real, genuine laugh that transformed his entire face. Yes, Princess Sophia. You get to live in the castle. And just like that, our new life began. Epilogue. 2 years later I stood in the garden of the Salvatore mansion, watching Sophia and Marco chase butterflies among the roses. At 6, Sophia spoke 3 languages fluently and had wrapped every man in Dante's organization around her little finger. At 9, Marco had blossomed into a confident, happy boy who protected his sister with fierce devotion. Mama. Papa. Look. Sophia called out, holding up a caterpillar she'd discovered. I still felt a thrill every time she called Dante Papa. He'd legally adopted her within 6 months of our engagement, and she'd chosen, completely on her own, to take the Salvatore name. Sophia Salvatore, the princess who'd stolen the heart of Chicago's most dangerous man. Very nice, Principessa, Dante called back, his arms sliding around my waist. But be gentle with it. I leaned into my husband's embrace. We'd married 8 months after that breakfast meeting, in a ceremony that had been both intimate and grand. And every day since, I'd fallen a little more in love with him. Any regrets? Dante murmured against my ear, his breath warm. I looked at our children, because that's what they were now, ours equally and completely, and thought of my old life. The fear, the struggle, the loneliness. Only one, I admitted. Dante's arm tightened. What? I turned in his embrace, reaching up to cup his face. That it took Marco's choice to bring us together. I wish I'd been brave enough to fall for you on my own. Dante's answering smile was radiant. We found each other. That's all that matters. As he kissed me under the afternoon sun, with our children's laughter filling the air, I thought about how far we'd come. From housemaid and mafia boss to partners, to parents, to lovers. From impossible to inevitable. Sometimes, I'd learned, the most dangerous choice is the one that saves you. Sometimes love finds you in the most unlikely places. And sometimes, just sometimes, the housemaid really does get her prince. And they live, truly and completely, happily ever after.